The Leo Sarkisian Library at the Voice of America holds one of the most rare collections of African music in the world. Named after the legendary VOA ethnomusicologist Leo Sarkisian, the library contains thousands of reels of recordings collected since the late 1950s from some of the most remote regions in Africa. At 92 years old, Leo Sarkisian is regarded as an icon among Africanist ethnomusicologists. He recently retired and passed on the responsibility to Dr. Heather Maxwell, also an ethnomusicologist. She manages and curates the rich and diverse catalog of music in the library. Heather hopes to digitize the collection, most of which is on vinyl, reels, and cassettes.
Down here, we have the 1970s. On this side is roughly the 80s. Here's the LP collection. We've sort of organized it by country, and these are all LPs, and we have more here and some more 45s on the back shelf. Some of those have been digitized and put in my blog. Get on voanews.com, go to Africa, and then click on Music Time in Africa or African Music Treasures.
Heather says that she's excited for the world to see more of the collections from the library. She says that the Library of Congress will be a good platform for people to discover African musical history through Leo's recordings.
It just opens it up to another whole channel. You know, historically now, this is important not just for ethnomusicologists and African music lovers, but also for people interested in the history of the United States, the cultural history, the aesthetic history, and it's just totally exciting.
The Library of Congress is one of the oldest federal cultural institutions and serves as the research arm of Congress. It is also the largest library in the world, with millions of books, recordings, maps, and manuscripts in its collections. Each year, the library selects rare and important audio recordings to be inducted in its recording registry. Matthew Barton is curator of recorded sound at the Library of Congress.
The Library of Congress recently added the work of Leo Sarkisian to the recorded sound registry. 25 items every year are added by the Librarian of Congress, James Billington, in consultation with others. And Leo Sarkisian's work was added in recognition of, first of all that he did through VOA, I guess through more than 50 years of the Music Time in Africa program, which was heard by millions around the world, although ironically, because it's a Voice of America, he's barely known in the United States of America.
Heather says that it's hard to make a selection in such a rich collection of music that spans decades, most of which has never been heard anywhere else.
Well, it's a great honor to have Library of Congress, #1, select these recordings for the 2012 registry. But it's also hard to make a selection on what sample we're going to give him. For example, this one is a 1969 recording that Leo took in Ivory Coast. Now, we would love to include that. This is just the music, though. And the recording of the voice we no longer have on record. So that's sad. However, we have the actual script. So the information is still here. This is, hello friends, welcome you again to Music Time in Africa. The first selection is music from the western part of Ivory Coast, of the Don people who number 200,000 in the Ivory Coast. It's just wonderful.
We're very glad that these recordings are being archived here, but also we wanted to get some representative recordings for our own collection, that is the Library of Congress's recorded sound collection. So I'm here to work with Heather on that, and we're trying to get together a representative sample from the different shows over the years. There's no way we could do everything, but something which will stand in our holdings for the work of Leo Sarkisian.
So this is the original African music. Now what Library of Congress is doing is they are interested in the recordings of the radio shows themselves. Do they say with this?
They did, but I didn't catch it.
It's probably Nigerian. It's probably like one of the early Nigerian jazz bands.
Let's maybe go back and announce it.
Fine. Now that's fellow and his big band, Nigerian big band.
Right. This was apart from the percussion. This was largely the reed section. And that would only be similar to
comparing Stan Kenton to Fela. That's great. And we just heard a portion of a very exciting recording that Heather found. It was from 1972. It actually aired on All Things Considered back then, when they happened to have Leo Sarkisian on as a guest, along with a Nigerian musician named Art Alade, and Willis Conover, who actually is also on the Registry of Recorded Sound for his work with jazz. This is my first time in this room here, and it's an incredible testament to all that he did. Heather tells me that he would spend weeks at a time in Africa recording all over.
Months
at a time, yeah. Recording music in all the different styles, from the most traditional to the most contemporary. We just heard a little bit of Fela Kuti from the early 1970s, and he was very much at the cutting edge of things then. Really fascinating stuff, to hear Sarkisian and Willis Conover talking about their work, but also, in this dialogue with Art Alade, talking about jazz and, how African is jazz, and how African are American musicians, when they're playing jazz. All of these questions, which people still argue about now. People come to the library to research all kinds of music, but also it's very special to get radio people like Sarkisian or Willis Conover talking about their own work. That's very rare. They were mostly talking to other people about their work. So when you get their perspective on things, that's quite valuable, and I think that's something that people will find quite interesting years from now.
Ultimately, the Library of Congress selected a recording from the Music Time in Africa program. In that particular program, Sarkisian was discussing and presenting music from Mauritania. It joined newly inducted recordings by world-famous artists like the Bee Gees, Pink Floyd, and Simon and Garfunkel. For Voice of America, I'm Jackson Punganyi.